Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ifeoluwa, and in this video I'll be showing you how to draft a basic bodice pattern, and I'm sure you would love to see how this goes, because from this pattern you can easily make tops, dresses, jackets and many other designs. So if you are seeing this video and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do well to subscribe, and to those who have subscribed, I really appreciate you all. Do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and also feel free to ask your questions in the comment section. So let's get started. So here are the measurements I'll be using. This is my bust measurements, the waist measurements, the hip measurements, the across back measurement, which is the shoulder to shoulder, the armhole circumference, that is round your armhole, the bust point, which is from the shoulder line to the bust point, that is the nipple point, and then the front waistline measurement and the back waistline measurements. So you can see that the front waistline measurement and the back waistline measurements are not the same. So that is because the bust is sitting at the front while the back is pretty flat, so it varies for a lot of people. And then we have the sleeve length, and then we also have our sleeve width. Now from the shoulder line, I'm going to be taking my chest line measurements. So I'm just going to label this upper part as my shoulder line. So to get the chest line measurements, I usually use my armhole, that is 14 inches divided by 2. So that way I'm going to get my chest line measurement. So I'm just going to mark that at that point, and then I'm going to mark out the bust point, which is 9.5. Then I'm going to mark out the front waistline. I have the front waistline as 16 inches, and then from the 16 inches I'm going to take it down and then mark out the hip depth. So I have the hip depth for this as 8 inches. I'm just going to mark it out at the other side so that I can have a straight line, and then I'll proceed to join them together. So I have the chest line, the bust points, the front waistline, and then the hip line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to create my armhole. Now for the armhole, I'm going to be using the across back, which is the shoulder to shoulder measurements. I'm going to mark it there at the shoulder line, and then I'm also going to mark it on the chest line, and then I'm going to join together. Now from the shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. That's because the shoulder is a little bit slanted. It's not just straight like that, so it's a little bit slant. So from the 1 inch, I'm going to measure out what I have left, and I'm going to divide by 2. Now from that point, I'm going to go in by 0.75. Now on the chest line, I'm going to take the bust measurements divided by 4. I have my bust measurement as 34 divided by 4. I'm going to mark what I have there, and then I'm going to connect the 3 dots, the 3 points together. Now I'm going to create the neckline. So for a basic neckline, I'm going to be using 3 inches for the neck width, and I'm also going to be using 3 inches for the neck depth. So you have to know that this varies for you. By the time you want to cut out a particular top or a dress, you can decide to use more than what I've used here. So this one is just for the basic this one is just a basic neckline. So I'm going to connect that together with my French curve, and then from that point of the neckline to the 1 inch that we came down by, I'm going to connect and have my shoulder slants. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to take the bust span measurements, which you can also call the nipple to nipple measurements, and then you can use this formula to decode the nipple to nipple measurements. This is the bust measurements divided by 4 inches minus 1.5 divided by 2. So I have this bust as 34 divided by 4 inches, which is 8.5, minus 1.5, that is 7 inches, then 7 inches divided by 2. So you can easily get your bust span like that, or you can just decide to measure it out. So I have 3.5 for this. I'm going to measure it on the chest line down to the hip line, and then I'm going to connect the dots together. So before we do anything on the darts, I want to take the bust measurements, the waistline measurements, and the hip line measurements first. So I already have my bust measurements taken. Then the waistline measurement, which is the waist divided by 4, I have 25 inches divided by 4, that is 6.25. I'll be adding 1 inch extra for allowance, for the dart allowance, that is 7.25. Now on the hip, I'm also going to measure out the hip measurement, which is 40 divided by 4, that is 10 inches. So I'm going to connect the points together. and then I'm just going to blend this side out with the curve so it won't be too sharp. Now let's come back to the darts. On the waistline, that is where we added the 1 inch extra. So from the waistline, I'm going to take in 0.5 inch on both sides. So I'm going to take in 0.5 inch here and also take out 0.5 inch there. So from there, I'm going to be connecting into the bust point. So from the bust point, I'm just going to come down by 1 inch and then I'll connect it back to the waistline. Then on the hip line, I'm going to come up by 2 inches and then I'm going to connect it back to the waistline also. Now we are going to create a dart at the side also. We know the front waistline is different from the back waistline. The front waistline is 16 while the back is 14. The difference between those two is 2 inches. So I'm going to be taking that 2 inches at the side there on the bust points. From the bust points, I'm going to take the 2 inches and then I'm going to connect back to the bust points. So that is going to be the side dart, so that by the time you are joining the front and the back sides together, they are going to align together. One won't be shorter than the other, so that part, we don't need that part anymore. So on the hip line, I decided to come up by 1 inch so that I can have that curve if I'm making a blouse, so that that curve can come into the blouse. So I just went up by 1 inch and connected it back to the hip line. So this is it for the front pattern. From this front pattern, you can decide to do whatever you want to do, or draft, or go ahead to cut whatever you want to cut from this. Now let's move on to the back pattern. For the back pattern, I'll be taking out 1 inch for the zip allowance. So I'm going to take out 1 inch from just for the zip allowance. So you can decide to use 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. It depends on how wide you want your zip allowance to be, but for this, 1 inch is just okay. So I'm going to connect the points together. Now this upper part is going to be the shoulder line. So from this shoulder line is where we are going to be making our measurements. Now I'm going to take the chest line measurements, which is the armhole divided by 2, 7 inches, and then the back waistline, which is 14 inches. So you remember that the front waistline is different from the back waistline, so I'm using 14 inches for the back. Now from the 14 inches, I'm going to be taking the hip line as 8 inches. That's the hip depth as 8 inches. Then I'm going to do the same thing at the other side, and then I'm going to connect the points together. So I'm going to go ahead to create the armhole. So I'm going to be taking the measurements from these new points. That is where we are going to be taking our measurements from now. Now I'm going to take the across back, which is 7 inches, and then I'm also going to take the same thing on the chest line, and then I'm going to connect together. So I have the chest line, the back waistline, and then I have the hip line. From the shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and then whatever I have left, I'll divide by 2 and mark that part. Now from that point, I'm going to come in by 0.5. You know, for the front we use 0.75, but for the back you'll be using 0.5. Now on the chest line, I'm going to fix in the bust measurements from our new line. So I have 8.5, and then I'm going to connect those points together. Now I'll take my neckline measurements. I'm also going to use the same 3 inches I used for the width at the front, and then I'm going to be using 1 inch for the depth of the back. So this is the standard, this is just a basic neckline. So you can decide to work with any other neckline that you want for this, but this is just a basic neckline. So I'm going to connect the shoulder slants now together. Now on the waistline from the zip allowance, I'm going to be going in by 1 inch. That's because the back is a little bit curved. The back is not straight. So to give your clothes or your top or your dress fitting, you have to come in by 1 inch from the waistline. So you come in by 1 inch from that point. So from that point, you're going to be connecting it back to the chest line. So from that 1 inch that you came in back, you connect it back to the chest line. Now for the waist measurements, you'll be taking it from that point, from that 1 inch point that we did. From that point, you take your waist measurements. So the waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that. Now for the hip line, you don't need to come in by anything. So you just take your hip measurement divided by 4 on the hip line, and then you connect them together. Now for the zip allowance, you're going to connect it into the new point that we made. So you connect it from the chest line to the new point, and then you do the same thing for the other side. So this is going to be our new zip allowance. So you also connect from that point to the hip line. You connect from the 1 inch that we went in by to the normal hip line. So that is how the zip is going to go. So you won't have any bulge or anything on your zip when you are sewing this part. So this is going to be the new zip allowance. Now we are going to fix in our darts. So from this original line, that's where you're going to be taking the darts. So you have 3.5, the same thing we use for the front, and then from the original line you're also going to take the 3.5 so that it's going to be straight by the time you are connecting together. So you connect all through from the chest line to the hip line. Now from the chest line you come down by 1 inch, and then on the hip line you go up by 2 inches. Now on the waistline you're going to take 0.5 inches on both sides. Remember that you added 1 inch for the darts, so you're going to take it on both sides, and then you connect back to the point that we made on top, and then you also connect to the hip. Now I'm also going to take 1 inch from the hip line, and then I'm going to add it back into the line, and then you can proceed to cut out what we have. Now for the front, before you cut it out completely, we are going to fold in this part of our darts. So we are going to fold in that part, and then you notice that the lines are not equal anymore. You notice that part of the line from the chest line to the waistline, you notice that there is a break in the line. So we are just going to connect that back to the waistline. So you're going to correct that and connect it back. So when you are cutting out, you'll be cutting out these new lines that we just made. So the old one, that part, we don't need it anymore. Now there's another way to go about it. You can just cut out this part like this. You just cut open one of the sides, and then you cover it up. You cover it up with your masking tape. So that is another way to go about the darts for that part. So this is what we have for our basic bodice pattern. Now let's move on to draft the sleeves. So for the sleeves, we'll have to measure out the armhole of the front pattern and the back pattern. So here I'm just trying to measure out the armhole. So I had about 7.25 for this one for the front pattern. Then I'll proceed to measure out the armhole of the back pattern. So you can measure out the armhole starting all over, or you can just continue with the 7.25 there, and then you measure out the back armhole. So I have altogether about 14.25. so that is going to be the armhole we are going to be working on for the sleeves. So first of all, I'm going to take the sleeve length. I have 8 inches as my sleeve length, and I'm just going to draw a line like that. The next thing I'm going to do is to come down by 4 inches from the sleeve cap. So from that point, I'm going to come down by 4 inches. So seeing that I have 14.25 as the total armhole measurement, I'm going to divide it by 2, and then I'm going to place my tape like this from the sleeve cap, and then mark out what I have. So I have 7.125. By the time you divide 14.25 by 2, you have 7.125. So I'm going to mark that 7.125, and then with a curve, I'm going to connect it down to the 7.125. So that is the armhole curve that you're going to have for this sleeve. And then I'm going to measure the sleeve width, and then I'm going to connect from the armhole curve down to the sleeve length. So this is the end of drafting a basic bodice pattern. So just know that from this you can decide to do anything you want. You can make a dress, you can make a top, you can make anything you want. So if you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my channel before leaving. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.